If Karl Marx were alive to see the 2000 animated film Chicken Run, do you think he'd enjoy it? My name is Kayse Melone, and I'm presenting an analysis of this film from the sociological theoretical perspective of Marx's conflict theory. In summary, Chicken Run is about a group of chickens trapped on a farm, facing a life of forced labor and exploitation by the Tweedies. Ginger, the determined and clever leader of the chickens, inspires the flock to recognize their oppression and work together toward freedom. In this analysis, we'll cover core sociological concepts related to the film, such as class consciousness or lack thereof, ideology, roles, and power. Definitions throughout this presentation will be according to the book The Real World: An Introduction to Sociology. Conflict theory is defined as a paradigm that sees social conflict as the basis of society and social change, and that emphasizes a materialist view of society, a critical view of the status quo, and a dynamic model of historical change. Sociologists using this perspective ask questions such as, who benefits from society's existing structures? Who is oppressed? How do inequalities shape behavior and opportunity? How do oppressed groups mobilize for change? In Chicken Run, the Tweedies farm represents a clearer social hierarchy. The chickens, as the oppressed class, produce value through egg laying, while the Tweedies, the ruling class, control the resources and benefit from their labor. This imbalance makes conflict theory the most appropriate lens for analyzing the film. In the first scene we're going to analyze, the chickens are in the henhouse and debate whether to keep trying to escape or to accept their life as egg layers. The significance of this scene is that it shows the beginning of awareness and potential mobilization, which is central to conflict theory because social change begins with recognition of inequality. This phenomenon is otherwise known as class consciousness. Class consciousness is defined as the recognition of social inequality on the part of the oppressed, leading to revolutionary action. Ginger is the agent of class consciousness in this scene. She makes the flock aware that their oppression is not natural or unchangeable. By encouraging them to imagine a life beyond the farm, she sparks the recognition necessary for collective action. Her line, "The fences aren't just around the farm, they're up in your heads," directly illustrates that class consciousness starts with mental awareness of oppression, not just physical escape. I would argue that Ginger lives in the world of everyday class consciousness, which is defined as awareness of one's own social status and that of others. In contrast, false consciousness is a denial of the truth on the part of the oppressed. In this case, the chickens, when they fail to recognize that the interests of the ruling class are embedded in the dominant ideology. In this scene we're talking about, Ginger asks, so laying eggs all your life, then getting plucked and roasted is good enough for you? One of the other chickens, named Babs, demonstrates false consciousness in response by submitting to the daily reality of her status with the line, "It's a living." She sees her position, but doesn't yet see the broader system of exploitation. That's false consciousness, which relies on an overarching ideology. Ideology is defined as a system of beliefs, attitudes, and values that directs a society and reproduces the status quo of the bourgeoisie or the ruling class. Here, the egg farmer's ideology has been internalized by a lot of the chickens. They believe their lives as egg layers are unchangeable and that escape is impossible. When asked who would feed the chickens if they were to leave the farm, Ginger challenges this internalized ideology by saying, "We feed ourselves, there is no farm," presenting an alternative reality and disrupting the dominant belief system. This illustrates how ideology functions to maintain control and how awareness can begin to undermine it. Now let's talk about the second scene we'll cover, which shows the chickens organizing to build a plane, a turning point where they move from passive acceptance to active resistance. Ginger assigns roles based on skills. Mag handles engineering, Babs does manufacturing or knitting, Fowler acts as chief aviation advisor, and Bunty provides eggs. The montage of clips then shows each chicken contributing in a meaningful way. This scene demonstrates the shift from alienated labor under oppression to purposeful collaborative work. You see, one of Karl Marx's criticisms of capitalism was the prevalence of the alienation of our individualized labor. Alienation means that we don't see the results of our labor and therefore don't find meaning or purpose in our everyday lives. This scene also highlights how collective action and aligned roles facilitate empowerment, which is central to conflict theory. A role is defined as the set of behaviors expected of someone because of their status. A role exit is the process of leaving a role that one will no longer occupy. Initially, the chickens' role is as passive egg layers, producing labor for the farmers with no benefit to themselves. This is alienating work. During the plane building scene, though, the chickens exit these imposed roles and take on roles aligned with their individual skills, again, such as engineering, manufacturing, or leadership. This role exit allows them to engage in meaningful labor and experience the benefits of their work. Whereas before this scene, they only identified as egg layers and were exploited every day of their existence, after their more meaningful contribution, they were able to enjoy autonomy, creativity, and a shared ownership of the outcomes of their labor. Now let's talk about power and how it relates to this second scene. Power is the ability to control the actions of others, while authority is the legitimate right to wield power. The Tweedies, or the egg farmers, exercise coercive power through fear and punishment, forcing the chickens to comply. Ginger, in contrast, holds legitimate authority. The flock willingly follows her guidance because her direction aligns with their interests and goals, demonstrating a redistribution of power and a move away from oppression toward collective agency. A critical distinction here is that power is taken while authority is granted. Now let's wrap it up. In Chicken Run, scene 1 shows Ginger helping the chickens realize they are being treated unfairly, which is called class consciousness. She also challenges the farm's rules and beliefs, showing them that life doesn't have to be controlled by the Tweedies' ideology. In scene 2, the chickens take on new roles and work together using their skills, with Ginger leading in a way the flock respects, showing legitimate power. Together, these scenes show how the chickens organize, resist, and eventually achieve freedom. Using conflict theory helps us understand how inequality works, how people can become aware of it, and how they can work together to change it. The film illustrates ideas like class consciousness, ideology, roles, and power in a way that is easy to see and understand. With that in mind, I think Karl Marx would definitely have approved and thoroughly enjoyed this film, as did I.